This episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast is sponsored by the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. As a woman in the modern world, our hormones are taking a battering. They're impacted by the food we eat, the toxins we're exposed to, such as when we eat out of plastic takeaway containers, or even worse, reheat food in them. Please don't do this. If you're handling FPOS receipts, filling the car with fuel, eating non-organic produce that hasn't been washed effectively, plus so much more things add to our toxic load every day. Even though our bodies are designed to effectively manage toxins, they haven't evolved as quickly as our toxic world has, unfortunately. So our body does need support. Symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, fatigue, disrupted periods, irritability, and gut health issues can be a sign that you'd benefit from a gentle detox. And that's why I developed the Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for Perimenopausal Women. This free guide has an abundance of information to get you started on your very own DIY detox. And if you'd like to upgrade to VIP, it's only $47 for a limited time. I used to sell this program for $247. The upgrade gives you the recipes, including plenty of plant-based options, the meal planner, the shopping list template, the video workshop, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more now. Take care of your hormones. They are a critical part of your health as a woman. Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to Q&A Thursday with me. And this week's question is from Beth from Melbourne. And she's asking, are my restless legs caused by perimenopause? I'm really noticing that my legs are moving around a lot at night, and I'm definitely perimenopausal. So I'm just wondering if it's related. Great question, Beth. It's really interesting. That actually sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole because I haven't come across that really as a symptom when I'm reading like clinical literature. It's not something that tends to come up much. But when I actually started looking into it, yes, there is a link, which really surprised me. And firstly, I'll just give a little bit of background on what restless leg syndrome is. It's also known as Willis-Ekbom disease, and it's actually a condition of the nervous system, more so than the physical legs themselves. It's in the nervous system, can happen in perimenopause and menopause. And the experience that women seem to have is it's just these annoying sensations in the legs that are accompanied by an uncontrollable need to move them, to walk, or to suspend rest. Now, just to kind of clarify, there is another, it's not really a condition, it's just like a symptom. Let's call it that. Where you might be someone that is fidgety, you might be someone that moves your legs constantly during the day. Like, for example, if you're sitting in a chair and you cross your legs and you kind of just start bouncing your foot that's crossed, I think you'll know what I mean. If you do it, you will definitely know what I mean. Now, that can be caused by magnesium deficiency. So that is really separate from restless leg syndrome or Willis-Ekbom disease, okay? So I just want to make sure you realize that they're two different things. Generally speaking, the restless legs happen when you're at rest, and it can be if you're sitting. Often it happens at night for some reason. Maybe it's just more that you notice it because you're not doing as much. I'm not quite sure about that. But I had a friend who had this in her, she would have been in her late 20s or 30s at the time. And she actually had to take medication at night to sleep because her legs would wake her up constantly because they would just be moving when she was asleep. So that's a really pronounced kind of case of this condition or disease. But when it's happening to women in their 40s and 50s, it does seem to be this link between perimenopausal menopause and restless leg syndrome. And interestingly, in the reading that I did, there was a paper looking at restless legs in pregnancy. And they said one of the potential reasons that they think this happens is because there's an abundance of estrogen, right? And when you think about this, because there are a lot of symptoms that happen in perimenopause that are similar to pregnancy, and it's because there are some similar hormonal changes. And as I've talked about before, and you might know from some of your own reading that you've done, but when you get into the perimenopause, your estrogen does drop away, but it also surges. So you get these surges of estrogen and then it drops, and then the surges again and then it drops. And so the theory is that these surges of estrogen in perimenopause are potentially causing these restless legs to happen for women in their 40s and 50s. So it's kind of interesting. One of the other things that can happen in restless leg syndrome is potentially as a cause can be iron deficiency. And I see a lot of women with low levels of iron. And again, one of the papers I read said low levels of iron in the brain can be responsible for restless leg syndrome. Now, there is potentially a genetic component because they've observed that restless leg syndrome often runs in families, and they have actually identified specific genetic mutations, I guess, that are present in people that have this condition. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so some of the things that are known to help are iron supplementation if you are deficient, also potentially magnesium supplementation. That's, from what I've read, more of an anecdotal benefit rather than actually studied in clinical trials. Some of the treatment options that have had some initial research done are vitamins B6, B12, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E. So it's quite a lot. I'll just say them again. B6, B6, B12, C, D, or E may help. Iron, as I mentioned, can also potentially help if you are deficient. So please do get your iron tested rather than just going and taking an iron supplement, because it is possible to have too much iron. So you really want to make sure that you are actually deficient before you go around just taking random iron supplements. The same with vitamin D. It is possible to have too much vitamin D. So that's kind of important to know, I think. And it is difficult when it's so easily and readily available at the supermarket and at the pharmacy that, yeah, you do know that you can have too much. Other sort of dietary components or advice that I can give is just having a large variety of fresh fruits, fresh veggies in your diet, lots of dark leafy greens, seeds, nuts, legumes, avoiding the usual processed foods, sugar and fried foods. All of these things they recommend to help reduce restless legs. And as I mentioned, there is medication that you can take. I would probably, if you're a perimenopausal woman, I would be really looking at, what are you actually having it as a symptom? Is it new? And getting those deficiencies checked, and maybe asking around in your family, are women in your family or women or men in your family having this symptom? Maybe it is a genetic component to your particular situation, Beth. So it's worth asking around in your family. But also, just making sure you've got those deficiencies that I mentioned covered, and looking at opportunities in your diet to get those nutrients in. So I hope that has been helpful, Beth. And yeah, I actually found it very helpful for me to actually go in and have a look at it and have a look at some of the scientific literature around this condition and its link with hormones, particularly estrogen. So I found that very interesting myself. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your week. Have an awesome weekend. I will be back next Tuesday with my regular episode. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts or the follow button if you're on Spotify so that you get each new episode delivered to you every week. If you like free stuff, then head to the show notes and click the link to receive my free Radiant Reset Hormone Detox Guide for perimenopausal women. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.